this month has been all about teaching, so it's dope to have you over here. I think we can go a little bit deeper about how you came to Europe and went on a mission to basically inspire everybody. So I want to dig
Can't
deeper into that one.
can't get everybody to the Bronx, so I bring the Bronx to everybody else.
Got to do it like that, yes, indeed. So first of all, I don't know what inspired you to go all out on teaching.
Um, Seeing people with talent. Well, when I came back, I was immediately embraced by the OGs. You know, when I came out of retirement in like '98, I was immediately inspired by the, you know, accepted by the OGs. They remembered me, stuff like that. And at that time, it was a epidemic of OGs going around saying, that's not b-boying, that's not b-boying, you're not doing it right. And my thing was, rather than criticize, why don't you teach them? If you're the keeper of the key, then it's time to help these people unlock doors. So I said, you know, I'm gonna start teaching. I've always, no matter what it was that I chose to teach, you know, dance isn't the only thing I teach. No matter what I chose, I've always kind of been good at it. Um, I don't try to get too elaborate or too eloquent. I break it down to the simplest form, and I can communicate with people with even somebody who might not understand will understand. You know, so I'm like, you
Mhm.
know what? I'm gonna teach the world. My goal was to have more students than anybody else.
And I guess you did it too. And
Yeah.
I can say that too. Like you were excellent, always excellent about breaking things down in a way that
Mhm.
anybody in the class could understand or anybody in the room could
Mhm.
understand. Like it's a different thing to structure it inside your head
Right.
before you break it
Mhm.
down to everybody else. So that's a definite skill
But
you were mastered out.
I've watched you teach, and you do a great job too.
No, it goes back
I
and
once
forth.
interrupt your class and said, "Can you teach me that?"
For sure.
I forgot where we was at. It was some sort of back rock. I was like, I gotta learn
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Goes both ways. How about mentoring people in the States? Like you ended up mentoring a lot of the people who were on the top of the scene in the early 2000s to mid 2000s. How did that happen? Because nobody was doing it at the time. Everybody was like kind of holding things to themselves and critiquing, like you said, critiquing everybody, but nobody was really taking people under their wing. It's like shit. I'm gonna make this one the illest battler in the game.
Well, it wasn't so much mentorship because New York is New York. You know what I'm saying? If you're a New York b-boy, I mean, you might give another b-boy respect, but that's still another b-boy. You know, New Yorkers, we all have that mentality. We could be cool, but at any given moment, you could be at the other side of that cipher. You understand what I'm saying? So I didn't mentor that many people in New York. You know, I had Jay Skills, you know, in New York. I used to teach a guy named Cream years before that, you know, but basically the people I did teach, they all came to New York. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure whether they admit it or not, people have learned from what I've said, you know, here in New York and adapted, you know. There's been there's been people like for instance, domesticated apes at one point was winning a lot of battles, 2-on-2s, Paranoia and Yaya. You know, you would expect them to only do Bonnie and Clyde, but they was joining everything, and they would always give me and Fever One props. You know, and I didn't even know them, but you know, so very much inadvertently, I started realizing, you know what I'm saying, that in one way or another, I taught people. Even you have said you've never physically taught me, but I've learned so much from you. And when I started figuring that out, I'm like, well, I'm not just going to teach physically from now on. I'm just going to start pushing even more out and start giving it away for free on the internet. A lot of cats didn't want to do what I did because it would mess up their workshop game. You feel me? But
Yeah.
I feel if you got so much of it, you could give it away for free. You know what I'm saying? And if a workshop pops up, give them something different. You know what I'm saying? The game should be told, not sold. If I can make money on a workshop, of course I'm gonna do it. But you know what I'm saying? Even now in New York, people send me emails, DMs, stuff like that. Like, yo, I'm coming to New York. I want to get a private. How much is it gonna cost? I'm like, come to my club, kick it up with me in my club, and buy me a drink or two. You know what I'm saying? I had one guy come to my club. He was ecstatic because he's a rocker. He's B-boy, but he mostly rocks. And I just happen to have a real OG, like 70-year-old rocker named Frankie Knuckles. And he got to like get up there with a true OG and go toe to toe with a true OG. Almost gave my dude a heart attack too. He's old.
So how about the time that you moved to Europe to teach? That was another chapter as far as
Well,
sharing. How did that happen?
what
And
happened was I didn't know I was the first one to do it, but Wiggles is the one that told me that, you know, he called it residency, and he was like, Ness was the first to do it. But I figured Europe is really big, but really small. Like, you know what I mean? You look at the United States, that's one big country. When you look at Europe, it's like more or less fairly, you know, structured the same, but it's lots of little countries and it's easy to get through. So my thing was, if I could go out there and stay 3 months, you know, I could possibly travel, you know, have one base where I could wash my clothes during the week, pack up again, and go out to a different country. And what happened was that 3 months turned into 6 years, you know, and
yeah,
it was a real that in itself was kind of outlaw the way I did it, because that was before the European Union. So every time I stepped into a country, I got that stamp and it was good for 3 months. So I would go back home to Switzerland on a Monday. They would stamp me in. That stamp is good for months, but I would leave again on Friday. So I was able to go 6 years just based on the dates of the stamps, you know? The only thing really illegal about it was that I had an address, a closet. But then when the European Union happened, it was harder because now the stamps were 3 months for all of Europe.
ah,
You understand? So then I had to start doing things like every 3 months, either go to Morocco or go to Russia just to leave Europe. You know, if I couldn't afford to come back to New York, just leave Europe in general. So I would go to like Morocco, or I would hit up people in Russia and they'd be like, yeah, we got work for you. Come through. Next flight. You know what I'm saying? So I managed to do that. I put in quite some good time in Australia, did it there. Um, Actually did it there first, you know, then started doing the Taiwan thing and then Europe.
yeah. Any specific memories or moments that you remember? I remember Poland was heavy on your workshops, Switzerland, of course, and Barcelona too. So
They're
between
all memorable.
yeah,
They're all memorable. You know, like I really can't pick out one and say it's my favorite. I have so many different favorites. You know what I mean? Europe was good to me. Poland was good to me, and that was because of you. You know, you was the first out of Poland B-boy that they brought there to judge and teach.
yes,
And
indeed.
from what Satowi told me, he asked you, well, who should we bring next? And you was like, you got to get Ness out here. So thank you, because that became my home away from home after a while. Like,
Being real. Yep.
yeah, as far as the most proteges in one single spot, I got the most in Poland.
Yeah.
You know, and they set up that
Came out of
they
it like Polski
yeah,
flavor.
that's around the time. And then right on the heels of that, they put together Polski Flavor, which was like the top B-boys from every crew in Poland, and they became international contenders. Like, I was so proud of them.
Yes,
I
indeed.
always said Cross One discovered Korea, but I discovered Poland.
100. And the events that came out of it too, like over the top, some super
Uh-huh.
memorable battles. Machine
Yeah,
versus that, for example, and all of that. Like it birthed so many
yeah,
memorable moments. It's
yeah.
crazy.
It's funny how that happened because that started with a conversation I had with a dude out there, and he asked me what a real battle was, and I told him a real battle is not 3 rounds or 5 fixed rounds. A real battle is toe to toe, blow to blow, without no H2O until somebody quits or gives up.
Mm.
And months later, he hit me up and was like, yo, I want to know if I could use that concept. And I'm like, it's not my concept. That's just the way it is. Do what you got to do. And he
Yeah,
threw the event and it was successful. And the next year he had funding. So he brought me down and that was amazing, that first one. And Poland is so much fun to host because I could really let loose, like I likes to drink. And when I drink, I like to crack jokes and shit like that. In Poland, I could walk on stage with a bottle and ain't nobody hating, you know? So I'd be ripped on stage hosting all types of jams and talking shit and everybody would love it.
for sure, for sure.
The one thing that I changed there was so B-boys could save face instead of waiting for somebody to give up, so everybody could hold their reputation. You would notice when one dancer was dancing, I would walk to the other side and talk to the other guy. And I'd be like, breathe, take your time. You got another round for me, you got 2 more rounds for me. And then when I could see it getting stale, or one person once told me, I'm tired, I would just cut the battle off myself. And it helps save face for all the B-boys out there. But the very first one, they did it until somebody quit,
Yeah,
which was one of the what I think is the biggest difference between B-boys in my generation and B-boys, afterwards. Like in my generation, we knew when we lost. Nowadays, cats will be getting smoked and they still talking shit and running moves, and you know what I'm saying? In my generation, you hit that one big burner, cats would walk across and give you your hand and say, you got this one, you know?
mm.
But it wouldn't mean you wouldn't see them again. You would see
Yeah.
them again. Yeah.
We had a question from the audience from the same thing. Like, what do you think? Let me find it up. See, it's up here. But that's one difference that you think that's different between the current generation and the generation from the 80s. But
I
what do you
mean, there's a,
think?
I mean, there's a lot of differences, but for me, at the time that I was competing and hosting and judging, I felt that, and just watching organic cipher battles, really, I was like, man, cats don't know when they're getting beat up. You understand what I mean? That's why in boxing you got a referee that'll sometimes save a boxer's life by stopping the fight, and you'll see the boxer fighting like, man, I could have went more. And we all saw what was going on. You was getting the shit beat out of you. You wasn't defending. You wasn't throwing punches. It's a wrap. You lost. You know what I'm saying? That's how I see today's B-boys.
Yeah.
Where where like I said, many a times, you know what I'm saying, you would see it, cats would just walk over and give you that pound and let you know you got that one, but they would always come back.
If there was one thing that you could change from the scene today, that would be simply just knowing your place and kind of let go of the ego once you get smoked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would change, but I'm not gonna get into it because these are just my opinions. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody's entitled to an opinion, but just because you're entitled to your opinion doesn't make it the law. And I
Yeah.
understand that. So there are things I don't like that I would change, but would it be better for the scene? I don't know. It'd be better for more appealing to me, but you know,
Yeah. What
too
do you
much
think makes a
too
great
much
teacher?
title giving.
Yeah.
Too much
What do you
title
think?
giving and too much I call it fast food fame. You know what
Yes,
I
indeed.
mean?
Hmm.
Nowadays, you could upload one video, and if it goes viral, you're the next new hot shit. In my days, I had to walk neighborhood to neighborhood to get my name out. And most of the times you winning battles, you're not walking out of there happy. You're getting chased. You know what I'm saying? You're getting chased, you're getting beat up, because we was going into other people's hoods. Because the goal was, I think Wiggles was the first one to say it. Back in our days, it wasn't about the money, it was about the ghetto celebrity status. And the only way to do that was to be present, to be physically there. We would sometimes walk for miles until we heard music. There was always a party in the summertime, somewhere, somehow. Which direction we're walking today? We're gonna go that way. And we walk and you hear music. Funny story, one time we was doing exactly that. We heard music. We snuck into the building, and the house parties sometimes would bleed out into like the hallways and the staircases of the building. So we didn't directly go into the party. Instead, we just walked up and tried to mingle with people like we belonged there. And as soon as the DJ played breakbeats, we went inside, started smoking cats, and then all of a sudden it was like, yo, who are these guys? They here with you? They with you? Man, it was one of the longest runs we ever had.
There you go.
Longest runs we ever had. No buses coming. And then for 1 second, I thought about going in the train, but I'm like, if there's no train there, they're going to follow us into the train, and then I'm stuck in a tunnel. So we just kept running and running until they gave up chase.
There you go. Your impact as a teacher is huge. What do you think makes a great teacher?
Man, it's not about being a great teacher. It's about being a teacher that's great. And then to be great, you have to be more than everybody else. That's why I always kept changing up how I taught in my workshops. I never allowed video cameras in my workshop, because my workshops are always different. I go with what's in the room at that moment. And I would always say, if I let somebody record it, they upload it, people are going to say, I already seen the Alien Ness workshop, I'm not going. So I would never allow that. But then I started seeing a lot of people picking up and doing what I do, you know, breaking it down into sections, and then the drills for stamina. And I'm like, Cats is doing my whole blueprint. So I kept trying to switch up the workshop. And then that's when I finally came up with Power to the People workshop. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a workshop that nobody could bite. I'm not going to go in there with no plan. I'm going to go in there and let everybody dictate what I teach. So that's what I do. That's the concept behind Power to the People. Because, I mean, I could walk into a room and teach choreography, but all the student gets is choreography. You know what I'm saying? I could go in there and teach my signature moves, but then all I end up with is a room full of clones.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is not to make another Alien Ness. I like being the only Alien Ness. You feel me? I could go into a workshop and teach a move so hard that 90 minutes will go by and they won't get it. And I'll just sit there, take their money and run. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let them dictate. So the Power to the People is just that. I gave power to the people. I go there, I sit down. Okay, what you want to learn? That? Okay, everybody stand up. We're going to learn that. Boom, knock that out real quick. Next person. What you want to learn? And I was like, that's the only workshop that nobody else would be able to bite, because I don't think nobody could do all of that. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I can do everything, because I could teach moves that I'm not physically capable of doing. And that's what makes a great teacher is the great teacher is got to be a great student. I've never been afraid to ask anybody, old school or new school. I've asked you, you know what I'm saying? Can you teach me that? You understand what I'm saying? Because if I'm going to continue to teach, then I got to learn this much more. So to be a great student, a great teacher, you have to be a great student. Shit, I teach air flares, and I call it when I teach that method of air flares, I always say, I call this the Sean Supreme method.
Mm-hmm.
Because Iron Monkey taught me how to do air flares. I was old and hit an air flare, but he made it so easy. And then when I told him I've been teaching your method all over the world, he told me I got an even easier method. And he taught me that. And it's crazy. I taught Rugrat how to do an air flare in like 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? But I was able to do that because I was able to go to somebody and say, teach me that. A lot of these cats out here, they want to project this image of authority. You understand what I mean? And be all of that. I say this in my workshop too. I'll answer any question. And the best thing about me is that if I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know. A lot of cats will make some shit up just so they could sound, you know, like they're the ones in the game. And I've heard some real wild shit, you know? So that's another thing. You have to also know yourself and be honest with your audience, because if that's the case, you're not doing any of your students any good. And if you're not doing your students any good, then you're not any good as a teacher.
100. Roro had a question over here. What is your personal accomplishment, greatest personal accomplishment that you feel that you have gotten from this lifestyle? What did the scene give to you? You gave a lot to the scene.
Man, I got the biggest family in the world. I have 1,000,000, 2,000,000 good friends, rapport. I have a bed in every country, a play, you know, like my biggest accomplishment has been being me and experiencing everything that I've experienced. You know what I'm saying? It's not, I mean, look at me. I'm a ghetto cat from the Bronx with a GED. You know what I mean? I got a GED. I dropped out of school and got a GED. That's the equivalent of a diploma. And then you turn the pages fast forward and I'm lecturing at Princeton, you know, all these great universities and college and shit. I got an honorary doctorate in metaphysics. Technically, I'm Dr. Alienness, but I don't push that. You know, it's an honorary, you know, doctrine, but I don't push that. But I think that my accomplishment is that, just being from where I am and still be able to do everything I've done. You know what I'm saying? I've had dinner with prime ministers and chilled with presidents of countries and shit like that. And then one time, Satoshi, again, me and Satoshi have a lot of funny stories. Over there, like cities and states, they don't call them mayors. Each one has its own president. And the president came to the show and the workshops and everything, and he wanted to take all these pictures with me from the press. And Satoshi was like, he's going to lose all his votes posing with an American gangster.
There you go. For the next one, I guess I already know the answer, but Figo is asking, have you had battles that turn into real beef afterwards? And what do you think of that type of battles that don't get settled in the battle?
In the 80s, almost every battle ended in a beef. Almost every battle ended in a beef. I've had beefs get started and then turn into battles, but nothing's really ever escalated past a battle. I mean, I've slapped people in the cypher and shit like that for getting a little too disrespectful. I once almost threw some guy off the stage. But yeah, flow 1, 2, 3. But like real beast from a battle, nah. Even if I lose, even if I win, I don't hold grudges. It's a battle. You know what I'm saying? When you could be me and Breakeasy for example, used to be at each other's throats every time we seen each other. One time, him, Orko, and Honey Rockwell was walking into the club. They're coming from another club, drunk. I'm walking out. We see each other. We start arguing right there in front of the club, and we ended up battling right there on concrete. Both of us tore up. But then now I'm in Brooklyn in my club. I'm like, man, I want to get dancers up here. He was one of the first guys I called. Break easy. I got this. You're gonna love it. Come through. He's like, Okay, he came through, had the time of his life. You see, like, if it's a beef about dance, it's a beef about dance. My opinion of you doesn't change. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm a b-boy, you know, and a b-boy is not, I mean, I understand we live in the era of stay humble and stuff like that, but there's nothing really humble about being a b-boy. You know what I'm saying? And when people look at me funny when I say that, I tell them, go stand in front of a mirror, give me your best b-boy stance, and tell me that's a humble motherfucker looking back at you. You feel me? It was never nothing humble. But you can humble yourself after you get out of that, when the music stops playing. You know what I'm saying? You always have, everything has its purpose, everything has its time and its place. So I've never really had no beefs come out of battle. I've had beefs that turned into battles, but and when I look back at b-boy beefs, living the lifestyle I live now, when I look back at my b-boy beefs, I'm like, I was so ridiculous. Like, like I thought that was beef. I didn't even know what real beef was until, you know, you put a patch on your back. You understand what I'm saying? I live a very hostile and volatile lifestyle, you know, but it's me, you know, and at any given moment you could catch it, you know, that's beef. So then I'm looking back at everything else and I'm like, man, that was never beef. That was just a disagreement. And that's something a lot of b-boys and b-girls gotta learn, that if you have a disagreement with somebody about dance, it's, you know what I'm saying? Me and Charles, we almost went at it on stage at the UK Champs 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Charles is my brother. I love that dude. I'll take one for him. I'll give one for him. You understand what I mean? A lot of my closest friends I have met in heated battles, you know, but I don't want to sound cliche, but you know how they say real recognizes real. You know, you gotta see that, you recognize that, and you give a man his props. Because if he's just like you, if his energy's like you, if his mentality's like you, if his gangsters like you, then he's just like you. If you're gonna hate him, you might as well hate yourself. So that's one thing I would change. Keep the beefs in the cipher. Afterwards, let it go. It's not
Yeah,
that, it's not important. It's not that important. We got wars going on. We got you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that important. People don't know what real beef is.
disagreement over some dance move. It's like, come on, take a step back and
Yeah, take a step
fix
back,
it.
because you never know what the person in front of you is all about. You understand what I mean? Like, people see a b-boy and they think, oh, he's a break dancer. But I'm about to fucking blow up some spots, but you got some real G niggas, some real gangster motherfuckers that b-boy. You had cats like Charles from Soul Goku from Soul Control. That's a street cat. He comes straight out of the gangs. Little Lazy from Massive Monkeys. You do not want to fuck with that little motherfucker. Floor Rock, triple OG out there where he's at. All the gangs over there, they look up to him. You know what I'm saying? For the work he's put in. So you never really know what that person is about. Don't let the dance fool you into thinking that person is like you or less than you. It just happens to be he likes to dance. You know what I'm saying? So people got to learn how to leave that beef alone. Because if they continue it outside, they could catch a cat, you know, one of those cats that I had just like mentioned, that was, you know what I'm saying, that it could end up a lot worse. You understand?
Yes, indeed. Another question from the audience. Where do you see breaking 10, 20 years from now? And what are your thoughts on the future? Are they positive or negative? Or both?
Positive, positive. All my predictions have come through, you know, and one of them was the Olympics. Well, not a prediction. It was more, I put it out there that we should strive for. You know what I'm saying? And here it is, 2024. It's going to be in the Olympics. That's going to change the game for everybody. Like, so many people are beefing about it, but they don't understand how much revenue that's going to generate for the B-boy and B-girl community, because now it's an Olympic sport. Now we could go start getting, you're going to start seeing corporate sponsors now. Where back in the days we had sponsors, then that sponsorship shit died out really fast. Cats is doing events out their pockets with maybe 1 or 2 loyal sponsors. But now you're going to have, don't be surprised if you see B-boy events and see logos on the fly like IBM, Apple, you know, McDonald's, like big major corporations, because they all going to want a slice of the pie. You have, for instance, look at like McDonald's, or these companies that will be advertisers and paying big money for advertisement during the Olympics. They're going to want their own spokesperson. They're going to want their own B-boy. So you may not go to the Olympics, but you could be up on that screen every 20, 30 minutes just because the Olympics is bringing so much revenue. And corporations are the biggest culture vultures. We know that. We say it all the time. You might as well take advantage of it. You know, there is a way of utilizing your enemy to your benefits. You understand what I mean? There is a way, just like I could almost manipulate people in battles, you can manipulate corporations, or not manipulate it, but keep shit at bay if you know your worth. You know, too many people signing contracts and losing their lives and stuff like that, you know, over a little deal and shit. Cats need to know how to play the game. You know what I mean? You don't want to be a piece on a chessboard. You want to be the hand that moves the pieces.
Yes, indeed. There you go. How about anybody who's aiming to have an impact as a teacher in the future, like throw themselves out there and freaking go all out about teaching and sharing? Any advice for the next generation of alien Nesses?
There's only one alien Ness. Let me stop. Honestly, my best advice is humble yourself and learn from everybody. Like, if I could walk up to a young cat and say, teach me that, you know what I'm saying? That says a lot. You know, and everybody could do that. You don't always gotta be the fucking man. Sometimes by not being the man, you could end up being the man. You feel me? But that's my biggest suggestion. Learn the vocabulary and learn as much as you can. Because like I said in my book, anything you lack is your weakness. And pay attention to what the students do. Stay on them. You know what I mean? Just don't fuck with them when they at your class and paying your fee. Stay on them. You know, I call some and I'd be like, yo, send me videos. Because I don't like wasting my time either. So any proteges I have now, they have to send me videos. If I don't see change in the amount of time I give them, I'm wasting my time. I could tell they're not practicing. You know, I'll teach like you know how I'm a big stickler on form, right? Actually had Solo, your partner, did a whole post and, you know, mentioned some things that he learned from me from form, like, you know, the hands tied, the knees tied, things of that nature. You know, if I give that to somebody and in 3 months their form ain't right, I know they're not practicing. I know they're not drilling it. You know, and if they're not really trying to get it, then I'm really wasting my time. And they're wasting theirs.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay, so that's all the questions I had this far. That's all the questions from the audience this far. So thank you so much for the time.
Nah, thank you for having me. Thank you for the cancellations, the previous cancellations, but I live a hectic lifestyle. You know what I mean? I hardly slept. I feel sick. You could probably hear it in my voice. I should be sleeping right now, but I'm like, nah, I'm going to knock this out. Let me just knock it out. I enjoy doing this, you know, it's just sometimes hard. I still enjoy teaching, you know. I don't battle no more, but I like fucking with people and telling them my battle. Even though I am coming back for one more battle. 2 more, actually.
2 more.
2 more battles.
Okay. 2 more battles. Are there secrets or anything that
Nah,
we can watch
nah, nah,
for?
nah, nah. MZK asked me to come in as a general for B-Boy City and freestyle sessions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
even if I don't dance, I might participate in a commando here or there, but I'm just there to be the general. You
Dope.
understand what I mean? And according to some of my members, sometimes the presence alone fucks up opponents' heads. So I don't know how much truth that, maybe back then, yes. I don't know how much truth that is to is now, but regardless, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do it. My niggas, I don't, I still, MZK is my legacy. Those are my kids, I don't claim MZK anymore, but I claim them as my peoples. So anything they ever ask of me, they always gonna get. All of them 200,000 pain in the asses.
Yes, indeed.
So
Oh,
I'll be
good. Look
seeing y'all
at
freestyle
that, man.
session, and
Freestyle
well, I
session,
don't
people
know, because
city.
I might judge freestyle session. Cross one kind of mentioned it to me. So if that happens, then MZK's on their own because I gotta pay rent. But if it doesn't happen, somebody's getting smoked.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Big up. Miss seeing you on travels, man. Rocking the after
Yes, sir.
parties all
We'll
around the
see each
world.
other again once the world opens up. But
Gonna happen soon.
I kind of do miss seeing you like every other weekend in a different country.
Yes, indeed. Friday to Sunday. It's what it is, whether it's
I
China
miss getting
or
I
Poland.
miss getting you drunk too.
Yep. That's another story right there. Oh, good.
Yeah, that one's not for the dojo.
We keep it outside
Yes.
of this. Yo,
All right, man. Everybody
good.
take care.
Ride safe,
Focus.
and
Thank
we
you.
stay in
Keep doing what
touch.
you do. I love what you do. You schooling people the whole B-Boy Dojo since day one. I was like, this is an amazing idea. And man, I'm feeling it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Man,
Kids is hungry out
yeah,
there. And it's good to know that I could disappear and there's cats like you, like, so many good teachers out there. Kid Glide, just out there teaching to teach, not just trying to get a job. That's amazing to me, and I commend all of you guys for that.
so glad to hear this. Glad to hear
Peace.
this, Mr. Ride safe, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Peace.